The last evening of Sandra Birchmore's life began in an ordinary way, quiet, cold, and blanketed in the kind of winter stillness that Massachusetts knows too well. A blizzard had swept through Canton, the kind that forces people indoors and muffles the world into silence. But inside the Canton Woods apartments, nestled in a pocket of the snow-buried town, one young woman was unaware that she was living the final hours of her life. Security cameras caught her moving through the lobby that afternoon, brushing snow from her coat, chatting softly on the phone as she walked toward the elevator. She looked distracted but busy, the kind of distracted that belongs to someone making plans, not endings. Later, footage captured her again, stepping outside to clear snow from her car. She moved quickly, brushing ice from the windshield with small, steady motions. She was 4'10", barely taller than the snow piled around her, but she worked through the storm the way she worked through everything, with effort, with intention, and with the quiet hope of someone expecting a future. That video would become the last time anyone, aside from the person who ended her life, would ever see 23-year-old Sandra Birchmore alive. Before we continue, here at Unsolved Crimes we help keep these stories alive. Please take a moment to subscribe. We're a small channel, and your support truly keeps us going. Even one click helps us stay afloat and continue telling the stories the world tries to forget. Her death was supposed to be simple. It was supposed to fit into a neat narrative, the kind that allows small-town police departments to close a case without looking too closely. But nothing about Sandra's life, or the complicated web of people around her, was simple. And nothing about her death was what it seemed. When officers entered her apartment days later for a welfare check, they found her on the floor of her bedroom, a strap looped around her neck, the other end attached to the closet door. The official explanation would be immediate. A tragic choice, a moment of despair, an ending that shocked everyone but raised few questions from the officers who found her. But the snow on her untouched car outside told a different story. And the details inside the apartment, details that would later horrify investigators, told an even darker one. Her aunt, who raised her after Sandra lost her mother and grandmother, would insist it made no sense. Her friends would say Sandra was excited, thriving, full of plans. And the hidden data in her phone, eventually uncovered only through federal intervention, would reveal a secret so disturbing that it would shake an entire county, expose years of alleged corruption, and ultimately lead to a stunning arrest. Because Sandra Birchmore was not just a young woman found under suspicious circumstances. She was the center of a story involving a police department, a fostered dependence that began when she was barely a teenager, and a man who knew exactly how to use her vulnerabilities to his advantage. And when she became pregnant, everything changed. Long before her death, Sandra had been drawn to people in uniform. Friends believed it came from a longing for stability, for safety, something she didn't always have growing up. When she joined the Stoughton Police Explorers program at age 12, she found what she thought was a lifeline. Mentors, older officers, a sense of belonging she had never felt before. What she didn't know, what she could never have understood at that age, was that this same environment would introduce her to people who would eventually use her vulnerability against her. Among them was a man she would later tell friends was the father of her unborn child, Detective Matthew Farwell of the Stoughton Police Department. He was 27 when he first met Sandra. She was 14. As an instructor in the Explorer program, he watched her grow up in uniforms she hoped would one day match his. She idolized him, not romantically at first, just the way any young teenager admires someone powerful, someone confident, someone protective. He knew that. And according to the findings revealed years later, he used it. By the time she was in her 20s, their relationship, secretive, confusing, deeply uneven, had reportedly evolved into something physical. She talked about it to friends, sometimes in ways that made them uncomfortable, not because she seemed ashamed, but because she seemed too trusting, too open about something she didn't fully understand. They told her to be careful. She never imagined she had a reason to be. Throughout 2020, Sandra confided to her closest friends that things had become complicated. Detective Farwell, married and a father, would come and go from her life in a pattern only he controlled. And then, sometime late that year, Sandra made a decision she seemed to believe would finally anchor her life, give her purpose, and maybe, just maybe, give her the family she had always longed for. She wanted a baby, and she wanted it with him. Friends would later say she was upfront about her intentions. She spoke about wanting to become a mother with a kind of determined excitement. Her conversations with Matthew became more emotionally charged. She planned out dates when she said he could visit, the times they needed to meet during her cycle, the things she wanted for her life once she became pregnant. And then, in December 2020, she told him the news. She was expecting, but instead of joy, instead of support, she received something else from the man she loved, something darker, sharper, and far more dangerous. Rage. He denied it. He blamed her. He grew distant. Then he grew angry. Friends would later recall messages that left them alarmed. Sandra telling them Matthew had pushed her, yelled at her, accused her. She told them he didn't want the baby, that he didn't want responsibility, that he didn't want the truth to come out, and that he wished she would just die. For a woman like Sandra, emotionally open, deeply trusting, and used to searching for connection, those words still didn't break her. What did break her, in the days before her death, was how quickly his attitude changed. Suddenly, Matthew was kind again, agreeable, almost tender. He agreed he might sign the birth certificate. He asked for her building's passcode. He reminded her of the apartment key she once offered to give him months earlier, something she had forgotten about, but now he wanted. On January 24th, just days before her death, she told a friend that he had looked inside her closet and then into her bathroom during a visit, as if checking something, searching for something. Just really odd, Sandra said in a text. But she brushed it off. Sandra's final day was filled with normal routines. Pregnancy research, work responsibilities she hadn't yet completed, online orders, like baby onesies and a stroller that would arrive after she was already gone. She had an OB/GYN appointment scheduled for the following week. She was planning a gender reveal. She was designing a poster that read, "Congratulations, you're going to be a father." She had been alive, hopeful, and preparing for her future, right up until the moment someone took it from her. The blizzard kept everyone inside that night. The snow outside her window thickened into a white wall, the kind that makes even time feel slowed and suspended. Sandra entered the building one last time at 5:33 p.m. That was the final confirmed sighting of her alive. A few hours later, a man entered the same building. A man who didn't live there. A man who didn't visit her floor normally. A man wearing a hood pulled over his head and a mask covering his face. A man who reportedly resisted wearing masks unless required while on duty. Detective Matthew Farwell was captured on surveillance walking into the Canton Woods apartments at 9:14 p.m. According to his statement, he was there to officially end things. According to the FBI, he was there for something else. He stayed less than 30 minutes, long enough to control a situation, long enough to stage one, long enough to silence a young woman who trusted him. Health data from Sandra's phone recorded her last movement at 9:40 p.m., just 3 minutes before surveillance captured him leaving the building. After that moment, the building returned to the same winter silence it held before he arrived. Sandra Birchmore would never move again. Her phone died 2 days later, on February 3rd, and on February 4th, the officers who once taught her, guided her, and shaped her teenage years walked into her apartment and declared her death a suicide. But Sandra left signs, many signs, that she didn't choose to leave this world. Signs that someone else decided for her. Her wet laundry, waiting to be dried. Her unwrapped baby items, waiting to be used. Her half-written pregnancy announcement, waiting to be shared. And the most chilling detail, her broken necklace with strands of hair trapped in its chain, found on the floor near her body. A necklace she always wore. A necklace her family said she never took off. It wasn't broken at the clasp. It was snapped forcefully. No struggle, officers said. No foul play. No reason to question the detective who admitted to being the last person to see her alive. But the truth wasn't buried with Sandra. The truth was buried in thousands of text messages that the local investigators claimed they, quote, couldn't retrieve. A federal expert later extracted more than 32,000 of them. And what they revealed would change everything. Her death was not simply a tragedy. It was a catalyst, one that would expose a network of behavior inside a police program meant to protect teens, reveal years of alleged misconduct, and eventually lead to the type of federal charge usually reserved for organized crime. Sandra Birchmore didn't just die. Her life was stolen, and the man accused of taking it worked in a place she believed she could trust. The days after Sandra's death unfolded in a haze of grief, confusion, and disbelief for the people who loved her. As her relatives stepped into the apartment she had carefully decorated for the life she believed she was about to start, they found themselves surrounded not by the remnants of a young woman who wished to end her life, but by the unfinished pieces of a future she had been building. There were damp clothes in the washing machine, waiting to be moved to the dryer. A second load was already dried, still warm when officers first arrived. Packages of baby items continued to arrive at her door, each one containing another tiny piece of the life she was preparing for. Soft newborn onesies, a stroller still in its box, pastel-colored clothes folded in anticipation. Friends later found a glitter-sprinkled poster she had made, the handwritten message still bright and hopeful. "Congratulations, you're going to be a father." Taped gently to it was an ultrasound photo. Her family knew Sandra. They knew her excitement, her innocence, her childlike openness. They knew she shared everything, sometimes too much, with the people around her. And they knew she had been thrilled to become a mother. This was not a secret she kept. It was a story she told proudly to anyone who would listen. But grief turned into something else when they discovered her broken necklace on the bedroom floor. A thin gold chain with a pink flamingo charm she wore daily, now snapped with a clump of her hair tangled around it. It was found near her body, yet officers paid it little attention. They saw no struggle, no signs of chaos, nothing that fit the narrative her loved ones knew was true. Sandra didn't hurt herself. She had been hurt by someone else. The people closest to her expected an investigation that would dig deeper. They expected someone to ask why a pregnant young woman, excited and making plans for her future, would suddenly end her life days before her next medical appointment. They expected someone to look at the messages she had sent. The escalating tension, the fear she voiced, the argument she'd had with the man she believed was the father of her child. Instead, they were given silence. But the silence would not last. Whispers within the community began to swirl about the police department, about the officers who knew her since she was a vulnerable teen, about the man who admitted to spending the last night of her life with her. And as the weeks passed, those whispers hardened into official complaints. And those complaints eventually ignited an internal affairs investigation that would blow the door off a system that had protected the wrong people for far too long. When the results of the internal affairs investigation were finally released months later, they shocked even those who thought they already understood how bad things were. 3 members of the Stoughton Police Department, Detective Matthew Farwell, his twin brother Officer William Farwell, and former Deputy Chief and Explorer Program Head Robert Devine were named as having played disturbing roles in Sandra's life. They had groomed her, manipulated her, used her. Evidence showed that Matthew's relationship with Sandra didn't begin when she was an adult. It began when she was still a child. She was 15. He was 27, and even more disturbing, Internal Affairs uncovered evidence of an ongoing physical relationship between Sandra and both William Farwell and Devine at the time of her death. Another officer from a nearby department was also implicated. The police chief, delivering the findings to the public, could barely contain his disgust.
Birchmore was a vulnerable person who had one constant in her life since childhood: her unwavering admiration of police officers.
For many in the community, the revelations were almost too horrifying to comprehend. How could so many officers in departments mere miles apart be involved with the same young woman for years without anyone noticing? How could this behavior continue unchecked? How could a complaint made just weeks before her death, a phone call from a friend who mentioned Detective Farwell's relationship with Sandra, be ignored? The answer was as painful as it was predictable. Someone heard the complaint. They simply chose not to act. Internal Affairs confirmed that the officer who answered that call didn't document it, didn't report it, didn't inform his superiors. Instead, he told Detective Farwell directly. And when Farwell instructed him to keep it quiet, he did exactly that. It was one of many cracks in an already crumbling foundation of trust between the community and the very people sworn to protect it. Yet, despite the damning findings of Internal Affairs, the county district attorney declined to file criminal charges against the officers. Not even negligence. Not even misconduct. They argued the case was too weak to pursue. Sandra's family, shattered but determined, refused to accept that. They sought justice another way, through a wrongful death lawsuit. They alleged years of grooming, manipulation, misconduct, and the ultimate failure of the system that should have protected her. They didn't need the state to classify her death as homicide to tell the truth, that the men in her life had caused irreparable harm long before the night she died. But the lawsuit also brought something new to Sandra's story, something the original investigation had overlooked or ignored. A second autopsy, A renowned forensic pathologist reviewed the evidence from Sandra's original autopsy and found glaring problems with the conclusion. According to his professional findings, Sandra had not died by hanging. She had been strangled. The manner of death was homicide. The FBI became involved soon after. They sought independent opinions from 2 additional medical examiners. Both agreed with the second autopsy. Sandra was killed. She did not take her own life. This alone was staggering. But the most explosive revelation was still to come: the text messages. The local investigators had claimed they couldn't retrieve a single message between Sandra and the man she'd been involved with for nearly a decade. They said the phone extractions showed nothing. No conversations. No conflict. No evidence of what she had been going through. But when the FBI's digital forensic specialist examined the same devices, they uncovered over 32,000 messages between Sandra and Detective Matthew Farwell in the year before her death. 32,000. And those messages laid bare the dark truth about their relationship, the control he held, the way he dismissed her feelings, the emotional volatility, and the dramatic shift in his behavior once she told him she was pregnant. They also revealed visits he claimed never happened, arguments he denied, violence he downplayed, and a chilling pattern of gaslighting that left Sandra doubting herself, even as she confided to friends that he frightened her. The messages revealed the moment she told him she was pregnant. His bitterness, his attempts to distance himself, his refusal to accept responsibility. They revealed how she told him she wanted the baby, how she said she planned to raise the child, even if he refused to be involved. And they revealed his growing desperation as the due date approached. He had everything to lose: his marriage, his career, his reputation, his life as he knew it. And Sandra had everything to gain. Authorities would later argue that this imbalance, the fear, the secrecy, the overwhelming pressure, pushed Detective Farwell into making a devastating decision. The night Sandra died, his wife was in labor with their 3rd child. He knew she wouldn't be checking on him. He knew the storm would keep others indoors. And after scoping Sandra's apartment days earlier, after asking for a key, after confirming the building's passcode, and after monitoring her movements, he chose the one moment he believed would give him both access and a buffer of time. He entered her building at 9:14 p.m. She took her final steps at 9:40. He left at 9:43. Her phone never recorded motion again. Federal prosecutors allege that he staged the scene to resemble a suicide, counting on the loyalty of local and state officers to take the scenario at face value. And for a time, they did. But the truth always finds its way to the surface, even in the darkest places. On August 28, 2024, federal authorities arrested Detective Matthew Farwell. He was indicted not for domestic violence, not for negligence, not for manslaughter, but for one of the most severe federal charges available: killing a witness or victim to prevent communication with law enforcement, a charge often used in organized crime. The FBI argued that Matthew Farwell ended Sandra's life to silence her, to prevent her from revealing their years-long relationship, her pregnancy, and his alleged abuse. He was denied bail. He remains in federal custody today. The community, once skeptical of conspiracies and rumors, now found itself staring at a grim reality. The systems meant to protect people like Sandra had instead protected the people who harmed her. And her death was not an isolated failure. A year after Sandra died, Boston police officer John O'Keefe was found dead in Canton under circumstances that sparked national outrage. Protesters packed the courthouse steps. They held signs demanding justice for Sandra as well. Some believe the 2 cases were connected through a network of officers who shared information, manipulated evidence, and protected each other. The public pressure led to calls for a full audit of the Canton Police Department. The votes passed. The audit began. And the questions have not stopped since. For those who knew Sandra, those who watched her grow from a teenager searching for belonging into a young woman preparing for motherhood, the pain of her loss feels unending. They remember her laugh, her childlike excitement, the way she spoke too openly sometimes because she didn't know how to hide things. They remember how she loved fiercely, innocently, and without hesitation. But they also remember how the people she admired most took advantage of that love. Her aunt once said Sandra had one constant in her life from childhood: her admiration for officers, people in uniform, people who took oaths to protect. She believed in them the way some people believe in fate. And in the end, that faith was what destroyed her. Her family continues to fight. The civil lawsuit moves forward. The The federal case against Matthew Farwell is ongoing, and the questions surrounding her death, the misconduct in local departments, and the failures in how her case was handled continue to unravel with each passing month. Sandra was a young woman who should have been protected, and in the years after her death, that echo only grew louder. What many believed was the end of Sandra's story became the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with revelations that shook the case open again after years of silence. In 2025, federal prosecutors filed a new indictment, one that added yet another layer of heartbreak to Sandra's tragedy. Matthew Farwell, already accused of ending her life, now faced a charge rarely seen in federal court, causing the death of her unborn child. It was a devastating acknowledgement that Sandra's final moments claimed not one life, but two. The indictment forced investigators, attorneys, and the entire community to confront just how deep this case went, and just how much had been lost. But even this development carried a twist that stunned the public. Months after Sandra's death, DNA testing revealed that Farwell was not the biological father of the unborn child she carried. And yet prosecutors made it clear, the charge still stood. Their position was that the pregnancy itself, regardless of paternity, threatened to expose the truth about their relationship, the alleged grooming, the years of control, and the reality Farwell had fought to keep hidden. The pregnancy was a catalyst, they argued. A risk he could not afford. Farwell pleaded not guilty to the new charge. His attorneys pushed to move the trial out of Massachusetts, arguing that the story had spread too far and too fast, that the public had already made up its mind. But as filings continued, more specialists stepped forward to challenge the original findings about Sandra's death. Independent forensic experts held firm in their conclusions. Sandra had not taken her own life. She had been attacked. She had fought back, and the truth had been mishandled from the very moments her body was found. The case now sits suspended between what has been uncovered and what will eventually be proven in court. A federal trial is scheduled for 2026. The civil lawsuit continues, and the weight of Sandra's story still presses against a community that once believed this tragedy could be neatly closed and tucked away. But nothing about Sandra's life, nor the way she left this world, was neat. Nothing was simple. Nothing was quiet. Her death exposed fractures in a system meant to protect her. And her voice, once ignored, once dismissed, now echoes across courtrooms, filings, investigations, and every person still fighting to make sure she is not forgotten. Sandra's story did not end in that apartment. It continues, and it will continue until the full truth finally stands in the light. And as long as people keep asking questions, keep pushing for accountability, and keep demanding the truth, the silence that once surrounded her case will never return, because Sandra was more than a victim. She was a voice, and that voice has finally begun to echo. This channel survives only because of viewers like you. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Your support isn't just engagement, it's what keeps UTC alive and able to tell the stories that deserve a voice. Until next time, stay safe.